everyone, it's Radha from She Talks Ball. She Talks Ball is just a platform that I have that creates content in women's sports, women's football, women's cricket. So today is the 18th of March and I'm going to be reviewing the fixture between Everton and Chelsea in the Barclays WSL that took place last night on 17th of March. Now, I did live tweet this and provide some live coverage for this match on my She Talks Ball Twitter account, so do follow that if you don't already. But I'm just going to take you through a few of my tweets and let's see how the game went on. So yeah, starting with the lineups, both teams put out pretty strong teams. I mean, they can't really afford to lose any more games. If Chelsea loses, City's probably going to catch up to them, and if Everton lose, they lose any last hope or grasps that they had on that top four claim. So yeah, they both went out all guns blazing. A few notable mentions on the bench for Chelsea were Guro Reiten and Jessie Fleming, and on the other side for Everton were Valerie Govan, Alicia Lehmann, who's on loan from West Ham, and Ingrid Morwold, who has just been an exceptional player for Everton all throughout the season. So before we get into the match, I had mentioned on Twitter that I think these 5 players are going to be seeing some minutes today, and it was nice to see that I predicted all 5 correctly because they all did come on. They all have the potential to be super subs, game changers. But yeah, let's get into the game. In the very first minute, there was a handball called in Everton's box, which was called on Lucy Graham. Everton weren't happy with it, but the ref made the decision. There is no VAR, there are no reviews. Melanie Leupolz kind of stepped up to take the penalty. Obviously, Chelsea are missing Maren Mjelde, who is out for this season, who has been the consistent penalty taker for Chelsea. She did so in 2 out of 2 games in the round of 16 for Chelsea in the Champions League. But leaving that aside, Leupolz stepped up, and Sandy McKeever, who is Everton's number 1 goalie, was actually injured. So they had Corpella, who was the number 2 goalie, in goal. Big task right out of the gate. Leupolz stepped up, shot it in the bottom left corner. An outstretched Corpella actually saved the penalty. So with all that action done in a way, it was 0-0 going into the first 10 minutes, first 12 minutes, and then in the 14th minute, we have the very familiar Kirby link up. I know it's overused, but it's going to be used and overused until that partnership is broken up or football just stops existing as a sport. So we had Kerr do a first-time flick over to Kirby, who was released in behind, ran past 3 defenders, and then a clinical finish. There was no stopping her. One thing that was a bit annoying was the commentator was very, very lousy, very average, kept calling Corpella Burger, who was the Chelsea goalie. So for a good chunk of the match, there were 2 burgers in either goals, which was a bit embarrassing, honestly. This is not the standard that we set up for the top flight English women's football, and hopefully it's corrected and never repeated. But yeah, back onto the game. There was a lot of talk on whether Fleming is going to make it over Cuthbert. Cuthbert hasn't had as many minutes as she would have liked in this season, so it was nice to see her get the start. Right around the halftime point, she did take a shot from outside the box, which zinged off the crossbar and went out. So both teams went into halftime with just that 1 goal difference, that Fran Kirby goal. And I don't know if it's too soon to say this, but the only thing on fire at Walton Horde Park yesterday was Fran Kirby. Right, so the second goal for Chelsea came in the 60th minute, exactly 1 minute after French powerhouse Valerie Govan was substituted in. So while Everton were looking to make an attacking change, Chelsea were like, hold up. They showed their prowess on the counter as well. Down the right flank, Niamh Charles put a great ball in for Kerr, who with her pace outran everyone, crossed it in for Kirby, who collected it in the box and looked up but didn't take the shot, instead squared it off to Harder, who had a simple one-time finish into the goal. So that was the second goal for Chelsea, and that did unsettle the substitutes a little bit. And of course, Everton saw that win or a point coming out of this game go a little more out of reach. Right, and as we neared the end of the game, Niamh Charles again, who probably was the player of the match if you ask anybody, she crossed it in from the right flank. Fran Kirby left it because she was offside, and having stopped her run, a lot of the defenders also stopped their runs for whatever reason. So Harder got her on her head and flicked it into the goal. It was a good save by Corpella. Unfortunately, she didn't claim it. She just tapped it, and Leupolz was right there to put it into the back of the net. So that was 3-0 for Chelsea. The the tie probably wrapped up. Chelsea won the reverse fixture at their home 4-0 at the end of last year. So this was a comfortable 2 games for Chelsea versus Everton. And yeah, all the subs that I had mentioned were played on the field for a good 10-15 plus minutes, and the game ended 0 for Everton, 3 for Chelsea. I believe Chelsea still regained their position on top. Everton, who were 5th, still remain 5th on the table. So interesting that although there was a 3-0 result, both teams still claim their place in the table, and it's surely going to make for an interesting season come the business end of the tournament.